Top 5 pick, although if you look at the draft order now at 10, at 5, and 9, this was entering the week. Updated-wise, they would have a top 5 pick. Justin Herbert recovering from that throwing hand index finger injury that required surgery. Of course, he is out for the rest of the season as well. Pete Prisco, Rick Spielman. We say hello to Brady Quinn for the first time today. And let's talk about the situation in L.A. first. Rick, I'll start with you. I know that the Spanos family usually doesn't do in-season firing, so this must have been tough for them. But given the situation that the Chargers were coming off of an embarrassing Thursday night game here, what's your assessment of what's taking place in that building right now?
Well, I'm sure they're looking at how do we move forward from here. So when a ownership group changes not only the head coach but the general manager, they're looking for a whole new philosophy, a whole different culture that they're trying to build down there. So I think that they'll start that process now, and it's going to be an appealing job. I think it's one of the better jobs that people are going to want. One, you're in a high tax state, but you're out in LA, nice weather all the time. Two, you have a franchise quarterback, but there's going to be a lot of rebuilding that needs to be done. If you look at the defense, J.C. Jackson was a disaster as a sign. They need help at the corner position. Khalil Mack is having an outstanding year, but he's 32. You have Bosa, who may be one of the more dynamic pass rushers in the league, but he's always hurt. And then on the offensive side, you have a couple weapons, and Mike Williams is coming off an ACL. And you also have Keenan Allen, but he's going to be 31 years old, and he's going to be looking for a new contract. So there are a lot of things that you're going to have to fix if you go out there, but you do have your franchise quarterback.
To that point, Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, Keenan Allen, there's one more too. I think that there's 4 players that take up about 60% of the cap next year. So clearly there's going to be some cap restructuring that has to go on with some of those older veterans, knowing that they're best football. Derwin James might be the other one then. That was part of that group. And by the way, that's not including Justin Herbert. So you clearly have some cap figuring out to do. More important than that, it's figuring out how to get the most out of this defense. I mean, that to me is really where Brandon Staley went wrong. If you look at his overall record as a head coach, he's, what, 1 game under 500? It wasn't like they didn't have some success. It's just this year, it felt like the wheels fell off. And what was starting to, I think, display itself was the defense was getting worse. When that's your calling card as a coach, I think you start to lose a little bit of the locker room with that. When you have a coach that comes from the defensive side, and that's the side of the ball that's struggling the most, and granted, you could say it was the offense too at times this year, but that's when you're looking at your coach saying, I don't know if I believe in this guy anymore. I felt like he lost the locker room. Like that Raiders game basically was the epitome of seeing a team basically kind of give up in some ways. And maybe it had to do with Justin Herbert not playing, but I think also the fact that defense just allowing basically everything to happen.
The other part of that, and I'm guilty of it, and I'm sure we all are, is I think we overestimated the roster. Let's be real. I mean, Derwin James hasn't played like Derwin James this year at all, and he just hasn't been the same guy. Bosa, you mentioned, he's in and out of the lineup all the time. The offensive line, once they lost their starting center, that thing kind of came apart a little bit. Slater hasn't played as well. They don't have really, when Mike Williams is in there, who scares you down the field? Does anybody scare you down the field? Quentin Johnson doesn't scare you down the field.
There is Davis, but he's young.
Yeah, right. But again, the roster, we overvalued the roster, and that's why I think Telesco got it. Telesco, what do you have, 3 coaches? He hired and fired 3, or hired 2, and he went with the last one. A lot of times you don't get that many coaches. He had 10 years there. That's a long time.
Can I ask you this, Rick? Because injuries have been, they've been snake bitten. I mean, that's what's plagued this team as much as anything. Because we can talk about the roster all we want. The reality is they do have stars. A lot of times those stars aren't out there because they are banged up. How would you look at this?
Well, that's the one thing. If they're paying that much money for those stars, then you don't have any cap room to have quality veteran-type backups. Then you're going with all young guys, and you're hoping that your coaches develop those young guys. We've seen it. To me, the LA Rams are the premier team on getting rid of all their high-priced guys except for Stafford and Aaron Donald. But they took a lot of young guys who know and didn't even have a first-round pick. And Williams and Puka Nacua and all the guys that they're playing with have stepped up and saved them a lot of cap room.
Quickly before we move on, Rick, just for you, they go defense for their top 5 or top 10 pick in the draft. Is that where you would go?
They're going whatever best player is available.
Best player available.
I don't think there's a corner up there, so I could possibly look at another receiver or offensive lineman, but to me, get a pass rusher if a Dallas Turner or someone is there.
All right, Brady, since it's the first time we're talking to you, we were speaking about Justin Fields and the potential that he could be the answer in Chicago. Now, we got those guys and their thoughts. What do you think about Fields and then get him help, or get the guy in the draft to become which would be Caleb Williams.
Look, I'm a Justin Fields fan because I think he's showcased enough with help what he is capable of being. I think the other thing you have to look at is look at what their general manager, Ryan Poles, has done so far when he's taken those picks and rolled them into bringing in other veteran players, whether it was Montez Sweat, who's helped out their defense in a big way, or bringing in a guy like DJ Moore. So he's been able to hit utilizing that sort of plan. And so for me, I understand there's a lot of economics that goes to this. You're going to have to extend Justin Fields. That gets expensive. But you're also going to be drafting a guy that is a bit of an unknown. And yes, you have the #1 overall pick. We assume that's going to be Caleb Williams. And look, I think he's the best quarterback in this draft. And I think I had a hard time believing he's not going to be the type of game-changing quarterback that he was at times at Southern Cal. The truth of the matter is, though, they may already have that guy there now. I just think if they continue to build around him, he can become the franchise quarterback that they're looking for. And they've done well with these picks. So why not maybe trade out of that, get a king's ransom, continue to build this roster?
And then lastly here for this segment, Joe Alt, the Notre Dame offensive tackle and lineman, declaring that he's going to go to the draft. Now, he will travel with the team.
Best tackle in the draft. Best tackle.
Nice of course.
These guys want Fashanu. They want to talk about Penn State. Go put on Joe Alt's film this year. I'm just saying. Go put on Joe Alt's film.
I think you might be right, actually.
I'm not might. I know for a fact I'm right. That's not even bias. I've watched both. I've seen both. Yeah. Joe Alt is a better overall tackle, in my opinion. Now, his arms might not be as long, and maybe doesn't move as fluid as Fashanu does out of Penn State. Those are the top two tackles. I'll put Alt's tape versus Fashanu's any day of the week. I think he's going to be a better tackle when it's all said and done.
I think that Fashanu has more upside than Alt. I think Alt's going to step in and be a day-one starter and going to solidify the left side because he's the best technician that I've seen coming out in a while. He doesn't have a lot of thud when he hits you, but he's very effective in both areas because he knows how to position his body. He's very good in space when he stays on his feet and blocking downfield, but he doesn't have the same upside that maybe the Penn State kid does. He may be better his rookie year, but I think the Penn State kid, and I'm going to say this and you're going to laugh because you hate my comparisons, I think he's Jonathan Ogden.
Ooh, I don't see that.
First off, he doesn't have the measurements of Jonathan Ogden.
No, he doesn't.
Jonathan Ogden is as big as that guy right there. That's Jonathan Ogden, real life.
Jonathan Ogden was a big, giant man. He literally
was that size.
Yeah, Jonathan
That's
Ogden.
not Fashanu.
Hey,
Fashanu moves and is athletic like Jonathan Ogden.
In the games I've watched, Alt has played better, A. And B, I talked to a couple guys in the league this week, and they all said Alt was better. And so I think you might be.
The one reason is because Fashanu or Fashanu has a clock in his head.
He gave 3 tries.
Don't give me all that.
I'll say this, though, too. I didn't love the offensive scheme at Penn State. You know, once they got rid of Mike Yursich, you know, then it's like, all right, what is this offense going to look like moving forward? There was times when I felt like that might have been part of the reason, too, why the tape wasn't as attractive, is because he's not always firing off the football. It felt like everything's a lot of lateral, a lot of zone blocking schemes. I didn't love what they were doing as from a run blocking standpoint as compared to what he was asked to do at Notre Dame, where I think Joel can showcase that skill set better.
In fairness to Rick Spielman, and I'm going to give him some praise here, you know I don't do that often, he drafted the best tackle in the draft a couple years ago when you picked Christian Darrisaw. He is the best tackle in that draft class right now, and you got him late in the draft.
And Rick, you know who said that back in that draft class?
Me.
Was Pete Prisco.
Yeah,
so he wants to take a picture.
He actually gave me a compliment before he got fired and sitting next to him?
Yeah.
With the first
we had that right, Rick.
That's where you can find the draft content with Ryan Wilson. I'm just still trying to wrap my head around. You're comparing Joe Alt to Jonathan Ogden, but you said there's another player in this draft that had higher upside.
I am not comparing
Ogden.
And I don't see, by the way, I don't see that one at all.
No.
The athleticism, the length, the way he moves.
Not the same size.
Nope.